on that. Surely, you put a lot of initiative and nobody recognizes that. The only thing when you complain, you are transferred to Northeastern. You are transferred to Samburu. You are transferred to Turkana. Yet you are asking to be given an opportunity as somebody who has upgraded himself or herself. Mr. Speaker, it's the high time that we look at the entire structure of TSC, because the government has a responsibility. They have become an animal and they need to be shaped to conform to the requirement of our basic child, because that's the reason why the school is there. Let's not transfer teachers for the sake of discipline, for the sake of being seen to be moving teachers. There must be a very serious lesson. I sympathize and empathize with a 59-year-old man who was transferred from Kitui to a school in my constituency called Kirimara, the coldest part in Kenya. That man, I had to go and plead with the director of TSC for him to be taken back to where he came from. It's not fair to separate families in a long distance. There are no expenses that are paid for these guys when they are delocalized. It is not fair at all. Let's have a policy that is going to guide the transfer, promotion, hiring of teachers in this country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much. Honorable members, if you look at your order paper for today, you realize that there is a proposed amendment to this motion under running order number 54. And I wish to give the member for Chepalungu, the Honorable Victor Koech, to move his amendment. I would request him to make it short, and I hope he already has a seconder in tow so that this process moves, so that we are able to debate the motion as amended, if we are minded to amend it. The Honorable Victor Koech.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I intend to move an amendment to this particular motion by the Honorable Member, Honorable Titus. Motion on review of teacher policy, or on teacher deployment policy. I wish to move the following amendment, that now the motion be amended by rearranging the resolution of the motion as follows. This House resolves that the Teacher Service Commission, 1, immediately reverses the ongoing delocalization of teachers, and 2, initiates a comprehensive review of teacher deployment policy with the involvement of teachers in order to make the policy consistent with the International Labour Organization, ILO, and UNESCO laws and practices on teacher management and deployment, and therefore inserting the following new subparagraph: review the teachers' recruitment policy with the view of devolving it to the zonal level as the recruitment level. Mr. Speaker, I would wish to make few recommendations about the same. I am freshly from a meeting with my local teachers from the different aids, that's the CAPTCHA and the NAT. And to point but a few, Mr. Speaker, their concern is what we are representing today here at the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, you notice that initially, before 2010, that is the promulgation of the new constitution, TSC were given the independence as an independent commission. Mr. Speaker, this particular independence resulted in the TSC acting in total disregard of the well-being of the teachers. Mr. Speaker, this particular independence gave the CEO an image and appears to be a smaller goddess. Mr. Speaker, this particular independence actually made the TSC.
Honorable Koech, you're doing well, but would you move your amendment first? Because you're already debating it. Would you just move the amendment first?
I stand guided, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, just move the amendment and then ask your second to second, so that then we debate the motion together.
Thank you. I stand guided. Mr. Speaker, I therefore would wish to move the above amendments, and I wish to invite the Honorable Member for Nandi, the Honorable Cynthia Muge, to second. Thank you.
The Honorable Muge, Cynthia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Take this opportunity to second the amendment brought by Honorable Victor Koech on the motion tabled on the floor of this House by Honorable Titus Hamala. Honorable Speaker, like he has stated, that particular amendment is important to this motion, Honorable Speaker, so that the policy is looked at holistically and we are able to take back the issues that has been entrenched into the TSC. Honorable Speaker, if you remember very well, Nancy Macharia, when people were looking and talking about devolution and devolving functions and money to the smallest units, she was busy recentralizing the recruitment of teachers. Honorable Speaker, it's not only unfair, but it also doesn't serve this country. Those teachers that we're talking about are people who actually carry the aspirations of this country. They're the people who actually deal with our children each and every day. If you force them, Honorable Speaker, and you place them in places that they cannot survive using decentralization and all those kind of things, Honorable Speaker, it is not going to work. So, Honorable Speaker, I support the amendment and I also support the whole motion altogether. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Remember, I'm assuming that all of us have the amendment because you can access it. It is in today's order paper. And if you were here when I, proposed the motion, I read it in total. I would now like to propose that the House adopts the amendment as moved by the Honorable Victor Koech. If that's a mood of the House, I put the question that the motion by the Honorable Hamala be amended as proposed by the Honorable Victor Koech. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. And will as many of quoted opinion say nay? Thank you so much. The amendment is carried. And members, now the motion will be debated plus the amendment. And if I may just then make it clear to you now what we'll be debating, I'll take the liberty to read the motion, the whole motion afresh. And I request you to now note the new motion so that when we debate the new motion. That aware that education is a key enabler of the national development and realization of Kenya's Vision 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals, appreciating the invaluable role that teachers play in actualizing the national goals of education, noting that a conducive working environment for teachers enhances performance, recalling that the delocalization of teachers commenced in 2018 by the TSC immensely disrupted teachers' lives, lowered teacher morale, and caused untold trauma to many teachers countrywide. Concerned that the exercise was not supported with a clear policy framework and was initiated without the participation of teachers or their unions, contrary to Articles 118 and 132 of the Constitution on public participation and involvement of the people in the process of policy making, cognizant of the fact that the delocalization of teachers is inconsistent with the UNESCO teacher deployment practice, which treats education as a culture process conducted within a people's cultural context at the local level, this House resolves that the TSC, 1, immediately reverses the ongoing delocalization of teachers, 2, initiates a comprehensive review of the teacher deployment policy with the involvement of the teachers in order to make the policy consistent with the ILO and the UNESCO laws and practices on teacher management and deployment, and 3, reviews the teacher recruitment policy with a view to devolving it to zonal levels as the point of recruitment. Thank you, members. And now the first chance on the motion as amended would go to the Honorable Charo Kazungu, if he's in the House.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to congratulate the men and women who have been approved here today, this morning, to serve in the cabinet. More particularly, I want to congratulate Honorable Aisha Jungwa, who comes from my own Kilifi County. She has demonstrated that if you work hard in this country, then the sky is the lower limit. She has come from a very adversarial background, but the good thing is that she has made it, and now she's serving in one of the highest offices in this country. She is an inspiration to a lot of girls from Kilifi County, and I know many are going to learn from her. Now, if I come to the motion, I want to say I support this motion on delocalization. It is very true that many teachers have suffered because they have been taken to far-flung areas without their consent. I come from Kilifi County, and I know of teachers who used to teach in Ganze, but they were taken to far-flung areas like Tana River, to Lamu, and Kwale. These teachers had very young families, but they had to leave them behind because TSC will not listen to them. I know of a teacher in Ganze who was transferred or who was delocalized to Tana River. This teacher was sickly. He was suffering from diabetes and high blood pressure. He did his best to talk to TSC to cancel the transfer, but TSC wouldn't listen. I'm sorry to say in this house that we lost the life of this teacher. It is a very sad situation, and I want to say that TSC did not give this delocalization issue a lot of thought. It was done haphazardly, and it has broken so many marriages. It has affected so many teachers. So I support the motion by Honorable Hamala and also the amendment by Honorable Victor from Chepalungu. I think TSC needs to reverse most of these transfers that they have done, especially for those who are willing. Mr. Speaker, I am married to a teacher myself. And my wife has served in the same job grade for many years. But she has been refusing to apply for promotion because she knows the moment she's promoted, she will be delocalized. She will have to leave her family, which is still very young, to go and serve in far-flung areas. But this is not the cry of my wife alone. I think this is the cry of many teachers in this country. They have to serve in the same areas because they know once they start looking for transfers, they'll be taken to areas where they don't wish to serve in. Another issue that has been affecting teachers in Ganze, especially, Ganze is a hardship area, and teachers have been getting hardship allowances. Though it is not enough, but we can say at least in Ganze, they are getting these allowances. But it has been a cry of other civil servants. There are those civil servants who serve in the Ministry of Education, but they're not teachers. They are serving in these same hardship areas, but they're not getting hardship. Only teachers are getting hardship allowance. So I've been told, I've talked to a lot of these civil servants, and it has been their prayer that when the teachers are getting hardship allowances, let the other staff who are working in the Ministry of Education also to get the hardship allowance. And this should also apply to other civil servants that are working in this hardship areas, including the police. Mr. Speaker, the issue of TSC not being responsive to the issue of teachers, I think it is open knowledge. Everyone knows about it, especially those who have been in the teaching profession. It is high time now this TSC is restructured to be accommodative and to listen to the plight of many of the teachers. Teaching is a noble profession, and we know we are here. All of us we are here because we are product of teachers. But teachers have been suffering, and the employer has not been listening to their cries. It is hoped that this House is going to come with a good policy, with a clear policy that is going to make TSC look into the plight of teachers and serve them at their best. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for according this opportunity, and I donate the rest of my time to the House. Thank you.
Honourable Member. This chance now goes to the Honourable Malim Farah.
Thank you. Next time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this motion on the entire issue of education speaks very much to the hearts of people from pastoral nomadic areas in this country. Mr. Speaker, if I take you back a little bit in history, education was not provided by the colonial government. Education was provided by the missionaries, provided by the missionaries. And because we had stuck to our own faiths, which we've had, I think by then, for more than 1,000 years, because they could not preach their faiths in our own backyards, they abandoned our places and they never brought us education. The first secondary school in Northeastern Province was put up in 1968. That is when they did the O levels. There was no secondary school in the whole of the North when we got independence. We had a similar situation in Marsabit. We had a similar situation in Isiolo, in lots of other places. Fortunate for us, those who were in Isiolo, we had Meru within a certain proximity. And I remember most of the teachers who used to come and teach in our schools were Merus those days. And Pokomos from the Coast Province, Tana River. Mr. Speaker, there has to be a policy in this country that is differential, is affirmative action, is able to bring up to speed with the rest of the countries the areas that were traditionally, historically marginalized. We never got that. The subsequent independent Kenyan government, with Prime Minister Jomo Kenyatta at the helm those days, concentrated on high potential areas to provide education to. The last 10 years, slightly less than 10 years, we had something that can only be equated to a genocide of the mind. Genocide or ethnocide is not just the act of killing somebody and cleansing them. When you subject them also to certain other inhuman activities and cultures, then of course that is a form of genocide. The TSC, because of one incident of lawlessness that happened in our region, withdrew in one sweep 5,000 teachers from those areas. Today, there are schools that are only have one teacher and there are 8 classrooms. 8 classes, standard 1 to standard 8, with only one teacher who acts as a headmaster, as well as a teacher who's supposed to teach the rest of them. Because these teachers did not run away for their own security, they were withdrawn by the TSC. You deny people knowledge, you confine them or consign them to a permanent underclass. And that has been the intention of TSC as constituted now. And then you will come and find a student who has got up to Form 4 and who has never seen a biology teacher, has never seen a chemistry teacher, has never seen a physics teacher, is supposed to do a national examination and compete with students in Alliance High School, Mangu, and all these other schools who have got teachers who only teach twice or 3 times in a week, because there's an over-concentration of teachers here. Then you tell them to compete also in opportunities in teacher service, in teacher training colleges. The lady who was a minister, Amina Mohammed, who incidentally understands our conditions, lowered that figure that time and said C- students can go into teacher training colleges and be trained as teachers. Nancy Macharia and TSC came out there and decided to go to court, saying that you're going to compromise on the academic excellence. So you cannot admit. So 3,000 young men and women who were trained as teachers, Mr. Speaker, were withdrawn from those colleges and could not be absorbed by the Teacher Service Commission. And other teachers from other regions could not come and teach in our place because she says there's insecurity in that place. Mr. Speaker, I am somebody who grew up soon after independence. And I know what discrimination is. I know what nepotism is. Because I remember in 1978, 38 A-level streams were approved by the Ministry of Education. And 34 of them were coming from one region. The rest of the country only boasted 4. We need to have a country that's united. We need to have a country where every Kenyan feels proud being Kenyan and understands and does not have any hard feelings because a section, under the leadership of a section, then nepotism, tribalism, ethnicity, regionalism was exercised on him or her. When I see this one, first time my inclination, gut feeling was oppose this motion. Because then it's going to take the few we have back at home. The majority of the teachers who taught us who are still teaching in schools in the north and pastoral nomadic areas do not come from those areas. But then I realized we already have a situation in which all those teachers have been removed. They might as well remove the balance that's there, and we begin looking for a way to cure that problem. For a way to cure that problem. We can then even recruit and train teachers. We can do everything we have to do. We can do what we have to do to be able to bring our children to have education. So I will support this motion. But let me tell you one thing. Delocalization properly exercised is good for this country because it unites the country. It takes, like I told you, my early teachers were Merus and Pokomos. The first man who was teaching us in Garissa in the 60s was called Zakaria Marete. I'm inclined to say that for him as a sign of respect. We can't do that because of my faith, but he will always remain in our own hearts and minds as somebody who the way to unite this country is to inculcate in the minds and the hearts of Kenyans at that young age that they belong to one identity. I went to a national school myself. And I remember how it was like. I relate to everybody who was with me in that school right now. Many of them have passed on since. Many of them are living as brothers and sisters. Brothers. It was a boys' school. So it's important and very good for us to integrate the country. But at the rate things are being done right now by the Teacher Service Commission, a new policy has got to be found to see how everybody has got to benefit from the independence we have had now for 60 plus years. In countries where even slavery was exercised, like the US, they have something called affirmative action through quota systems. I did pass a motion myself of affirmative action through quota systems in this parliament in 1993. And one institution that immediately implemented it was the Kenya Medical Training College. Mr. Speaker, I hope I still have time. And I'll give you one thing. You cannot say equal opportunity, equal merit when there's no equal opportunity in education. Mr. Speaker, for the benefit of members of parliament much younger than me and who are not in the 7th parliament, I was one of the youngest those days in the 7th parliament. The motion got the support of both sides of the country, of the aisle, the divide. And at that time, I was in the opposition. The only member of parliament from the north who was in the opposition. But I got support from both sides. Very, very difficult task those days for an opposition member of parliament's motion to be supported by the government side. But everybody's heart was felt when I told them, this year we admitted only one student from the schools in Northeastern Province into our national universities here.
Your time is up.
For all days' sake and for being a member of the panel, give me a few minutes, 5 more minutes, please. It happens. Let me tell you the practice.
Honourable member, you won't tell me the practice. I'll give you 1 more minute to wind up. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I remember doing this myself, but anyway, if I...
No, we'll give you 1 more minute, Honourable member, to wind up. Honourable Malim.
I'll take you for some lessons on some of these things when we get time.
I won't be taught by you.
Thank you.
Remember, I won't be taught by you. We will use a minute and wind up.
Thank you. What I'm trying to tell you, a child who had C- went to medical training college to do pharmacy those days. In the first year, the then director of medical service told me, I will implement this thing only for once, but if they do poorly, I'm going to change. 10 of the 11 top students in that class were students who had low marks, but then became the top in the pharmacy class. Because they got the opportunity. They never had the opportunity. Students are bright, brilliant, but when they don't have the opportunity, you cannot make them compete with students who are spoon-fed in education. So let us pass this motion. I'm inclined to say I pass this motion, but then we need to come back again to a similar motion in which this country has to be integrated in a fashion in which we can all feel as Kenyans and integrate our people for the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well said. Thank you so much. Honourable Hamala is here. This House set up a committee called Committee on Implementation. So I would advise that you take notes as members contribute so that, if your motion is carried and is being implemented, you could also enrich that with the members' contributions. This chance now goes to the Honourable Beatrice Elachi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I just want to appreciate and congratulate you to sitting in the Speaker's panel, to have that privilege. You are a member who has been in this House and contributed so immensely into the development of our country. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this motion, a motion that I know every teacher, wherever they are looking at us, Mr. Speaker, and wondering why did we decide to really politicize everything in our country, especially things that are under social, education, health. We find ourselves every time so politicized that we want to make our country look a country that we are not one in one. Yet, Mr. Speaker, we remember when we were in school, we had teachers who came from other communities that will help us to grow, that will help us to understand Kenya is one, that we are here to unite a country. And we talk about tribalism, it is our teacher who removed us from tribalism. And therefore, even as I support, I think I want to agree with many of the members that we need a policy. This is a policy that must guide this process. A policy that we must ensure, number one, for those who are young and would wish to traverse Kenya and understand Kenya, they must be given that opportunity. But for those who are in near age of retirement, we must also give them the opportunity to go closer home. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, even as we speak about delocalization, we have to ask ourselves the pros. What is good in it? What is bad in it? I think this House has to now assist I know there are many issues with TSC. I have many people who have sent me SMSs. They were moved, their families are young. But also, in government, we must ask ourselves now, in a government where you have public service and you have every tribe, do you want to work as Kenya? Do you want to enrich your country for people to appreciate you as a country? Or do we want to remain in this tribalism disease that sometimes takes us so backward until even in employment, when you come, we want to now again forget we are in public service. And one of the roles of public service is to ensure every Kenyan has an opportunity. That opportunity is I can work somewhere, and in 3 years I can go back and work somewhere else. And I think that will be the most healthiest way, or even 5 years, and go back and work somewhere else just to appreciate Kenya. Yes, I know we have challenges of our children and families, but we forget also in county governments at the moment, Mr. Speaker, you find that a nurse or a doctor, if you are working in Nandi and you want now to transfer to go back to your wife, you are told you have to look for someone who will come and replace. And we need to sort out that. There is no way that a Kenyan can go and work somewhere and cannot move when he needs to for purposes of integration. So I think even as we speak on all this, we must look at the policy. We must request ourselves to understand this is one country, a country that you would wish your daughter, your son to go and work into another county, but you cannot tell me I grew up in Kakamega, in Malava, I will school in Malava, be a teacher in Malava. It will also be unfair. But those who are willing also, the policy must allow, because you will find someone willing to work at home, that is okay. But let us not also push it so much and make our country a country where we will never appreciate any other person from a different tribe. As I appreciate the nominees, Mr. Speaker, I see now we have, and I'm hoping our CS of Education now will take up this. There are issues in TSC that became very political, and we must deal with them. We cannot politicize an institution that employs, an institution that is supposed to see us move to the next level and our children. And if there's something that makes us step here, Mr. Speaker, most of us is education. That is what made us move from one level to another. The time we started politicizing education and making others, they can use this book and others use this book, Mr. Speaker, is the time we destroyed education, where we decided we have international schools where our children go, and decided our public schools are schools where we can just say today, change the system. Tomorrow, teachers are moving. I will tell you, I was last weekend in a board meeting at Moi Girls Bukoli, and I was very sad at that time because the deputy principal was moved. Yet, this is a science school. This is a school where we are just about to go to exams. And I really wished TSC would have just waited for us to finalize the exams, the kids do the exams, and you move the teacher in January. But then now I say to myself, surely I am hoping by this time the CS education will have to take, he has no time, Mr. Speaker. He needs to move with speed, especially to see how are we going to do exams of year 6 and standard 8. Are we ready for the year 6 to go to boarding schools? Yes, we are. Do we have the schools? Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the facilities, especially the dorms, the dinings? And more importantly, to look at the primary schools at the moment. And I'll tell you in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, it is so sad. You find 6 kids on a desk. They write when their hands are behind because you are so squeezed. And I'm wondering what happened to the desks. Mr. Speaker, I've not understood why 100 billion goes to books in this country with publishers. And yet every year we are just publishing books. Our days, the same book would be used for those who are moving to that class. What happened? Did we decide to make business with education until we've reached at this point where our children in public schools are finding themselves wondering, why is it that we have been so discriminated And therefore, as I finalize, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say I support, but we must agree as a House that we need a policy that will guide every sector. That if a teacher would want to stay home, fine. If those who are young can go and integrate with Kenyans, the better. But for the unity of the country, education is what brings the rich and poor together, and we must learn that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The shorter, the better. The Honorable Beatrice Kemei.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start by congratulating you for sitting in the speakers panel. I know you are equal to the task. I listened to you debate yesterday, and I was so impressed. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, and I've seen we have visitors around, and when we are debating on teachers, I'm sure this is normal. I've been a teacher for 20 years plus, and today, as we discuss and debate on deployment or delocalization of teachers, it is something that is very close to my heart because I've been in the sector. Maybe to start with, Mr. Speaker, I want to support the people who brought the motion on board. It is very, very, very important. And over the years, Mr. Speaker, TSC has worked, I don't know how to express, but the point is that they are not doing as expected. Why am I saying so? During our days, when we were asking for transfer, like for me, I asked for transfer to come from Kericho to Nairobi, where I taught for over 12 years or 13 years. It was not very easy, but that is just asking for a transfer. And I also realized that many other teachers were asking for transfer from one place to another, just to join their families or for many other reasons. It was not very easy, Mr. Speaker, but at the moment, what I can say is that TSC, when they started this delocalization, many teachers have been affected in the sense that looking at the age of some of them and being told to move from one county to another, it brought so many problems. Teachers from my county have actually been complaining. You look at the teachers, they are stressed. Some of them have got mental issues now. And looking at some of them, their pay slips cannot even hold. So in this case, delocalization and deployment of teachers, to me, as we discuss, should be considered and considered with a policy. Kenya Kwanza, when the president signed a charter with the teachers for that matter, the point that was clear is that for delocalization, it should happen to the new people, those who are newly employed, and I do support that one. But the people who have stayed in the profession for many years and then being told to move, these men being told to move to another county, they have not been cooking for themselves, their families have been cooking for them, or their wives for that case. It affects them seriously. And I want to say that that one should be looked into consideration and ask a teacher, those who are willing to move can actually be allowed to move, but those who are not willing, they shouldn't. And especially if they are moving on promotion, I would say it is normal. Because some teachers can be promoted, but the station where they are, and maybe the county where they are, there is no space. And if they are willing to move to another county, that one, I would say it is out of their choice. So, Mr. Speaker, I would say that some teachers have responsibilities. Some of them are taking care of old parents. Some of them are taking care of many other people in the society, knowing that teachers are the people they are looked upon in the society. So for this case, Mr. Speaker, I would say this delocalization will do them no good. And Mr. Speaker, some communities are hostile to outsiders. They are used to maybe teachers from their communities and from their locality. So a teacher being moved to such places, Mr. Speaker, when they move there, they are actually stressed and they may not be received well, and this one will also affect their performance and the performance of the students. Mr. Speaker, I would also say that when teachers, some teachers actually teach in hardship areas and they get some hardship allowances, but when they are moved, some of them are moved to areas which are not hardship areas, and therefore there is no hardship allowance, and maybe they have actually engaged their pay slips. This one, Mr. Speaker, will affect the teachers seriously, and you see TSC does not give notice to these teachers, so some of them have their pay slips being negative, and that one is not good for them and even for the rest of the community. Maybe to add on that, Mr. Speaker, you will realize that some schools don't have facilities, especially those ones at the primary schools. They don't have houses for the teachers, and even the locality, they are just small centers. So asking a teacher, not even primary alone, even secondary school teachers, asking a teacher to move to such places, Mr. Speaker, with no facilities, we are doing harm to such teachers. Being asked to go and live in mud houses, for that matter, because there are no facilities, no electricity, no water. What are we really saying? We are degrading the status of the teachers. Mr. Speaker, I would also say that when it comes to the delocalization, I know of some field officers or some county directors and the like who want to settle scores, and even some principals and head teachers, they want to settle scores, and they would want to give out the names of teachers, Mr. Speaker. So to me, teachers should be allowed to live or to work and to teach where they are best, they like it best, and more so where they are more comfortable. I would also say, Mr. Speaker, that the TSC should fashion a system where teachers' remuneration is a tandem with academic qualifications, where one works. If it is in primary, I would say that they should be paid equivalent to their qualifications. If it is in high school, it should be the same, or even in post-primary, Mr. Speaker. So that in this case, we have so many primary school teachers who have also attained degrees, but they are still remaining in that place. I think something should be done with the TSC, and I believe the new CS now will have to look around and put things in order, Mr. Speaker. I would also ask the Ministry of Education to develop structures in all schools equally so that it can attract good student population. Why am I saying this, Mr. Speaker? Many teachers would want to teach in schools with good structures, where also performance is good, leaving out the schools which are upcoming, and this one will actually affect most of these coming up schools. So I would say this, the ministry should put up structures. I would also say that the enrollment of the school is attracted by the performance. It is also attracted by the structure. So I would want to support this motion by saying that teachers should be allowed to actually teach where they are. And once more, I want to congratulate all the nominees and thank this House for the job well done. Some of them were teachers. For example, Honorable Florence Pore, who is my predecessor. She's been a teacher, and now she's been approved as a CS. So once more, Mr. Speaker, I am saying that teachers should be allowed to teach where they are, and TSC should take it seriously to look at the issues and the matters of the teachers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Everyone has decided to do their 10 minutes, so I hope members understand. This chance, 4 minutes to go, will go to the Honorable Omboko Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this chance, even if it's 4 minutes, but I hope I'll get some small addition later on. Let me thank Honorable Amala for this motion. Yesterday, when he moved it, I told him not to deal with me directly. And let me therefore declare, Honorable Speaker, that I'm a teacher leader. And I'm the chairman of the Teachers of Kenya. And I really want to thank Honorable Hamala for having brought this motion. This motion would never be here, Honorable Hamala, if the Teacher Service Commission, and I'm possibly also speaking to it, would actually carry out what we call public participation and involve all stakeholders in every policy that they undertake. The policy of delocalization, what has brought it to the floor of Parliament is lack of public participation, lack of involvement of the stakeholders, the unions, KNUT, CUPET, other stakeholders, KEPSHA, NAT, the teachers themselves. And I think as we move forward, it will be very important that the Teacher Service Commission brings together its house of stakeholders so that they can be able, and we can be able, to deal with issues of education without completely politicizing them the way Honorable Elachi has spoken about it. Because if we go that trend, it will be difficult. Honorable Speaker, this policy appears in 2018. But what is the background? Before independence, schools which have been spoken about very well by Farah Malim were actually run by the missionaries. But later on, the schools were handed to government of Kenya. And that is how the Teachers Service Commission was therefore formed around 1967 to come and distribute these teachers to those schools. Honorable Speaker, prior to that, every school had got its own teachers, paying them whatever it wanted and dealing with them whichever way they wanted. The Teacher Service Commission was brought to bear in order to make sure that there is a harmonized system of administering the teachers in this country. And therefore, having enacted the 2010 Constitution, it is very important that the Teacher Service Commission adheres to the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, Section 47, Item 47 of the Kenyan Constitution is the one that actually brings this motion to bear in Parliament. That it talks about fair administrative action. Yes, every organ that is required to administer the welfare of individuals in Kenya, and in this case the Teacher Service Commission for the teachers, has a right to administer. But it says that in the event that administrative action will